The United Nations estimates half the world's fisheries are overfished. The activities of unlicensed trawlers adds to the crisis.
The problem of illegal fishing is enormously widespread. We've had estimates that assess the problem at around 20% of the global catch.
Illegal trawlers typically don't respect breeding grounds, pay no license fees, and ignore fishing quotas.
Tell him it is very good for him now to do whatever we want.
This fishing vessel is under arrest for fishing without a license.
Today, Earth Report investigates fishing off the west coast of Africa.
Nobody would want to be stuck on this boat.
And examines claims that millions of dollars of illegally caught fish are smuggled into Europe. Trawlers have been flocking to the coast of West Africa, one of the world's richest fishing grounds. They've come from most major fishing nations in the world, competing to supply a seemingly insatiable global demand for fish. Some are legitimate, but officials estimate up to 50% may not be.
In 2005, there were 1,200 large-scale fishing vessels registered in the 14 largest flag of convenience countries. A detailed search discovered that there's about 1,000 vessels that we don't know where they are, we don't know where they're fishing. That means they must be fishing illegally.
Over the course of a month, environmental campaigners set out to learn more about some of the tactics used in this illegal trade. The law of the sea states every fishing vessel must clearly display its name. But dozens of vessels don't. When this vessel was first spotted, it was called the Leone 13. But 2 days later, the number had been rubbed out and a new name painted on the bridge, the Leone 24. This vessel was on the list of trawlers licensed to fish in these waters. Or was it? Several hours later, the Leone 24 was spotted again. But it was clearly a different boat.
Well, there are many games played by these pirate vessels, so any patrol flight will not be able to tell who they are.
Helene Boers is a fisheries expert who, at the time, was working for the Environmental Justice Foundation. She's been tracking what she calls pirate vessels for 20 years.
I was flying with the official regional surveillance flight. You have sometimes cases of two vessels with the same name. Vessels using one name when fishing in Guinean waters and another name when they go to Las Palmas. So there's no way you can track the activities of those vessels because you simply don't know exactly who they are and what their name is, let alone who owns the vessels.
Licenses are issued to each boat, but in this chaotic situation, they become meaningless. To make matters worse, the maritime nations of the world have handed the illegal fishing fleets a legal system that virtually guarantees their anonymity.
This is Las Palmas Port Control.
Under international law, every vessel must fly a national flag that clearly identifies it to port authorities. The same law says any country can sell the right to fly its flag. It's called a flag of convenience. Problems arise when countries sell this right, but ignore the obligations that go with it.
The problem is that some countries that offer flags of convenience do not monitor the fishing boats that are flagged to them. They have no idea where they are, they have no idea where they're operating, they possibly have no idea who is even operating them. There's very little transparency. It can be very, very difficult indeed to trace the ownership and control structures of vessels that are flying flags of convenience.
"60 nautical miles off the coast of Guinea, an extraordinary vision in the most unlikely of places. It was a graveyard of abandoned trawlers, or at least that's how it appeared. But far from it. Each hulk had 1 or 2 Chinese crew on board waiting to play their part. In a world where boats are expected to fish 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, these were backup vessels, ships waiting to be cannibalised for spare parts. Meanwhile, they offered temporary accommodation for backup crews. Many had no idea how long they would be on board.
Some of them are at sea for 2 years without ever going back to land. They don't know when they're going to be paid or how much they're going to be paid.
Every 3 months, new supplies would arrive. Xu Qin was the first mate. With a broken ship's engine, he was not happy.
Nobody would want to be stuck on this boat.
He had no safety gear, no way to contact the outside world. Xu Qin did not even know how much he would be paid, perhaps about $3,000 a year. Getting home to his wife and small daughter, who he had only seen twice in 5 years, seemed a distant dream.
One of them had this little raft that he could go onto the next vessel, visit his neighbors.
These are small fry, pawns in a multi-million-dollar game.
Actually, there are cases documented of some of these vessels simply sinking with all the crew, and nobody's held accountable for it, and another vessel with another crew comes and takes its place.
Since September 11, 2001, the International Maritime Organization has put in place a huge range of security measures for merchant vessels. There's no such regulation for fishing vessels. That means they can operate under the radar, almost with impunity. And as such, they represent not only a threat to fish stocks, but frankly also a security threat in this day and age.
In a world increasingly concerned about security, the pirates have also discovered routes to smuggle their illegally caught fish into one of the most lucrative markets in the world, Europe. The illegal fishing industry is well organised and well supported, but it's got to sell its products. Early one morning, a Greenpeace reconnaissance helicopter spied a cluster of vessels far offshore. There were 2 trawlers in the cluster, but neither of them was fishing. Instead, they were tied up to a refrigerated cargo ship, the Binar 4. Were they transferring fish to the freezer ship? had the catch come from Guinean waters.
According to Guinean sources, the fish on board Bina 4 was originating from Guinea, but also from Guinea-Bissau and possibly Senegal. So the vessel was transshipping all along the West African coast, collecting fish.
If any of the fish on the Bina 4 had come from Guinean waters, there would be a problem. Under their law, a Guinean inspector must be present at a transshipment. It is a way of checking boats have licenses and pay their dues.
According to the Guinean authorities, the transshipment was not legal because it took place in the absence of Guinean inspectors who would control the quantity of fish being transshipped and the vessels by which the fish had been caught.
Through radio calls, Greenpeace confirmed that the Korean-owned Bina 4 was heading for Las Palmas in the Canary Islands, one of the most important ports for fish coming into Europe. Greenpeace set off in pursuit. Transshipments at sea, where legal and illegally caught fish may be mixed together, is said to be one of the main ways illegally caught fish are smuggled into the lucrative European market.
By the time it gets to land, to Las Palmas, nobody knows anymore who caught it, if it was fished legally or illegally, and whether the fish has been taken from a country which desperately needs the fish for its own people.
Finally, as the Bina 4 neared Las Palmas in Gran Canaria, activists struck. By the time the ship arrived in port, it was thoroughly decorated. The Spanish police held the vessel in dock while the port authorities investigated allegations that the cargo included fish from Guinean waters. But at a dockside press conference, the ship's captain and its Korean owner vehemently denied that the Bina 4 had any Guinean fish on board. As for the Spanish authorities, they said they couldn't get the evidence they would need from the Guinean authorities to impound the cargo.
We tried to contact the Guinean consulate in Las Palmas, but there was no reply. So we sent the documentation to Madrid, and the Ministry of Fisheries tried to contact the Guinean authorities to see if the cargo was legal or illegal. Again, there was no reply.
Follow-up calls to the Guinean authorities were equally unsuccessful. The Spanish authorities said they would try one more avenue.
We tried to make contact through the Spanish embassy in Dakar with Conakry, asking the same thing. Did the ship have the right documentation? Was it legal or illegal? Do they have the right to the fish, etc.? Again, nothing.
With no word from the Guinean government and no evidence produced that the fish came from Guinea or that the Bina 4 had in fact broken the law, the port authorities allowed the vessel to unload its cargo.
Because the allegation was still unfounded, and given that the cargo had been deteriorating for up to 10 days, the government ordered its unloading.
There has been concern in the EU Parliament that illegal fish continue to slip into Europe through ports like Las Palmas. To understand better how the trade works would mean talking to one of the major companies alleged to be involved.
José Ramón. Hola, Federico. Ya me tienes fichado.
Local journalist Federico Aguiar knows the port of Las Palmas well and knows who to talk to.
Muy bien. Nos vemos. Gracias.
The state-owned China National Fisheries Corporation, the CNFC, has been spotted on a number of occasions allegedly fishing illegally. It's one of the biggest operators in West African waters.
Illegally in the coastal waters.
After an exchange of emails and phone calls failed to produce any response from the company, Federico visited its office in Las Palmas. He took with him allegations from a number of reports going back nearly a decade. Observers from the now defunct internationally funded Surveillance Operations Coordinating Unit allege that on October the 10th, 2000, CNFC vessel 9310 was fishing illegally in Gambian waters. On June the 21st, 2001, the same unit alleged CNFC vessel Haifeng 830 was fishing illegally in Guinean waters. On October the 20th, 2004, Greenpeace reported CNFC vessel 9311 was arrested in Guinean waters for fishing net violations. In April 2006, the Haifeng 830 was again reportedly observed, this time by Greenpeace, fishing illegally in Guinean waters.
Hola, buenos días. Y habían ellos avisado que venían al señor Mariano. Sí.
But at the CNFC office, they declined to talk or even give a statement.
He's saying there's no boss here to answer, so he thinks they will answer you sometime soon. He says he has a lot of work.
A letter was later faxed to the senior manager in Las Palmas, Mr. Zhong Wenfeng. There has never been a reply to the letter, nor a response to a fax to the company's head office in Beijing. But whatever the pros and cons of this particular case, the European Commission accepts illegal fishing is a big problem. Indeed, it believes at least 10% of the world's illegally caught fish end up on the European market.
If one were to try to calculate the value of the illegal fish that is landed on a global scale, we're speaking of around about 10 billion euros worth of fish. I would say that a good 1 billion plus euro worth of fish ends up in community markets.
Today, there is a widespread consensus that Europe needs to take a firmer stand. But even more importantly, experts believe the developing world needs to be given the means to gather data and monitor their own waters.
Without a Coast Guard, the Sierra Leone territorial waters are completely unguarded, which leaves a completely open space in which the legal fishing trawlers can come in and take the fish. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I should imagine Sierra Leone has lost a hell of a lot of its due revenue.
In Sierra Leone, a group of international advisors, the so-called International Military Advisory and Training Team, has been helping the local navy set up patrols.
Oh, hi, one. If you can read me from Channel 16, this is Naval Patrol Boat.
The force uses small, highly mobile speedboats to monitor fishing fleets.
Stop the vessel and hold the net. So we have to board, okay? Are you the chief officer or the actual captain on board? The actual captain. You are the actual captain. So, captain, please, can you instruct your fishermen to bring the cordon of the net? Because we are going to check it, okay? Yeah.
It's a huge job. They are trying to patrol an enormous area of sea.
The Sierra Leone coastline is 200 miles. The protected fishery waters go out 200 miles. That is 40,000 square miles. So, pretty ambitious task here.
All right. Yeah. Do you know the position where you are now?
Yes.
What is the position?
13 to...
So, are you fishing at the right point?
This fisherman, it turned out, was just outside the exclusion zone and therefore legal. The boat was not arrested.
I'm going to give you a warning. Yeah, so don't argue. At this point, don't argue. I'm giving you a strict warning. You have to be...
However, the patrols have been having an effect.
There has been success over the last year. The number of licences that have been applied for have doubled from about 25 to 50, so there's a success. And every time there is a boarding, the word spreads. What is difficult to measure is the deterrent effect it's having by just psychologically illegal fishermen knowing the Sierra Leones are doing something about their territorial waters when probably they weren't for the last 5 years.
But the immediate future is bleak.
Illegal fishing in general has a devastating impact on fisheries resources. And if we don't care about it now, then frankly we can look forward to a situation in a few years' time where the only fish that we have to eat is something that's been farmed and fed artificially in some lake somewhere.